Hi guys, Miss Bryant here. Welcome to your first industrialization video. What I want you to do while you're watching this video is to record down your notes at your own pace. That may mean you have to pause the video every now and then, or maybe rewind it and go back and catch something that I said that you didn't get down. But I will be checking your notes that they are thorough and complete, and I will also be checking your questions and prompts that you answer at the end of each section to make sure that you are on track getting the info that you need. So let's talk about the Industrial Revolution. You should be turned to the front page of your packet on the overview section. So, industrialization is this time of rapid industrial development. And what I might mean by industrial is industry, which are companies that create large products like tractors, railroads, steel, energy, things like that. Inventions have made producing goods easier and more profitable, so you see the rise in the assembly line, we see mass production of cars. So this all starts right after the Civil War, but it really picks up in the 1890s. And it's usually all over the United States, primarily in the northern industrial cities. But this is primarily because farmers are moving out of their farms and into the cities because of new technology and new inventions that have helped farming become much easier at the time. So what this is called when farmers move from the rural areas where they live, their farms, to urban areas, which are cities, that's called urbanization there. So you can see it on your screen. Urbanization is when people move from rural to urban cities. So why? These farmers were leaving their farms because of new farm technology and machines. So the more machines and the more technology means the less people that you need. So with less farmers, that means that there's less farming jobs. So the farmers were moving to the cities to try to find work. One important thing to know is all of this new technology, it needed less people, but it also grew more crops. So the increase in technology in farming actually contributed to a higher yield of crops, even though less people were working on it. So how was the U.S. so successful during the Industrial Revolution? First thing, the U.S. had a high abundance of natural resources. So this is like coal, which produces electricity, iron, timber is just like wood, copper. This makes it easier for people to start business because they don't have to import all of their resources. They can get it straight from here. A laissez-faire economy also contributed to a rise in industry and business. This is an economic policy where the government does not touch the economy. So the government doesn't put out any regulations or kind of force businesses to do certain things. So the laissez-faire economics in conjunction with an abundance of natural resources made the United States a really great place to industrialize. Lastly, who are we going to talk about during this Industrial Revolution? First of all, we're going to talk about rich company owners. Oftentimes they're known as robber barons. We're going to talk about immigrants, and we're also going to talk about migrants that move from the southern areas of the United States typically to the north. So some results of the Industrial Revolution. I'm going to go over these really quickly right now just so you have kind of an idea of where we're going, but we'll talk about these in more depth later. So we've got mass production of goods and new inventions. We're going to talk specifically about agricultural inventions. Urbanization, which means the expansion of cities, tenement buildings, and poor living conditions in these cities. A middle class emerges out of the Industrial Revolution. A high increase in immigration, which we're going to discuss later. A change in working conditions. The working conditions were terrible. These factories were brand new. There were no safety precautions put in place. There were no governmental regulations on labor. So working conditions were not great. We've got the rise of big business, as well as labor unions and violent strikes. So we are going to move forward to our first section. So you should be looking at section number 1, new inventions in technology. So the Transcontinental Railroad was finished in 1869, and this is a huge positive for the United States. When I say transcontinental, I mean that it reached all the way across the United States, from Maine to California, from Florida to Oregon, everywhere it was interconnected. So this is a huge factor for enabling the Industrial Revolution to be successful in America, because when you can ship your goods anywhere, that means that you can sell them to more people and you have a larger market, which means there's more people out there that are willing to buy your good. So when the market is larger, that means that you can produce more goods and that you can sell more goods. And when you're selling more goods, that means that people are spending money and you're making money, which stimulates the economy. It gets the economy rolling. People are making money, spending money, and that goes in a circle. And then that also creates jobs. Because if I own a factory and I'm able to sell my products all across the US instead of just in Cincinnati, then that means that I need more people to work in my factory to produce more of my product. So overall, the railroad really is this new technology, this new transportation that affects the entire Industrial Revolution. Photograph there of the groundbreaking of the railroad, the Transcontinental Railroad. Agricultural technology. So this is both positive and negative. This can be seen as positive because it allowed the farmers to produce more crops. This is important to know, that even though less people were working, there were more crops being produced due to this technology. However, it was negative because people were out of work, so that's why they moved to the cities. So an example of this agricultural technology is McCormick, his horse-drawn reaper. He used this to harvest grain, and he was able to sell it to other people starting in 1840. This allows one farmer to do the work of 5 farmers. So think about that. I mean, that means that 4 guys are out of a job with every single reaper that is bought. So it's really great though, because it also creates 5 times the amount of harvest in a day. So McCormick actually was the largest producer of farm equipment in the world, in the whole world, by 1850. Another example is John Deere. We've probably all heard of John Deere. And he created the riding plow, which was made out of steel. You can see right here on this picture there's a steel blade. And this is important because previously it was wood and iron, and the soil stuck to it, so it was kind of hard. So this also makes things much more efficient. Called mechanization. That's using some mechanical object to get something done more efficiently. So these inventions made farming less physically demanding, less time constraint, and it left some farmers out of jobs, but it produced more crops. Some other new inventions that you should know about. The telephone. This is the very first telephone right here. It says Telephone Pioneers of America. That's definitely not what we carry around in our pockets every day. The phonograph. This is a record player. So this is like the first type of iPod that there ever was. The first type of kind of like a radio or CD player. The light bulb was created during this time period, as well as a surge in electricity. Here are some of the first washing machines ever created. And in 1903, the first skyscraper was built. Skyscrapers were built because with this urbanization, everyone's flocking to the cities. There's no room to build outwards anymore, so they start building up. And that's how we get the creation of skyscrapers, to save space. And then the automobile and airplanes also emerged during this time. So, What I'd like for you to do right now is to stop, and you should answer the prompts on your guided notes. So you should have filled out your guided notes as I was talking, and now you should be looking at the prompts. When you think that you are finished and you think that your notes are full and your prompts are correct, then you should throw your hand up in the air or get my attention. I will stamp you and then you can move forward. Congratulations on completing your first industrialization video.